What is employment relations? What is ER? When people say ER, what do they mean? When they put in ER skills in a job ad, what are they looking for? Do you think you know? Are you sure you know? Because there's a pretty good chance you sort of know. You sort of worry that you don't know. So let's straighten that out. The truth is, it's one term, two meanings. So let's talk about what those are. There's an analogy that I can't keep going back to all the time. It's a well I can't keep drawing from. The analogy is the emperor's new clothes. One of the interesting lessons of the story is the emperor's court, the various people around, weren't prepared to put their hand up and say, I don't understand what I'm looking at, it doesn't make sense. Therefore, they opted to tell clear lies because they didn't want to look stupid. Does that happen all the time? Yes. People are probably forever going, I'm not entirely sure what it is that I'm talking about, but I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm talking about. The area of HR that we're most prone to see this is employment relations. And I'm going to stop using the term employment relations from here because even that is loaded. I'm going to use the term ER. You would have seen ER all the time. You'd see ER in your job description. You'd see ER in job ads. You'd see ER specialists. It's a whole subfield of HR which there are different people thinking different things or understanding it differently when they use the same word, and that's really confusing. In this lesson, I can't fix the world, but I can explain to you what those two, maybe three meanings are so that you can figure out what they really mean when they use that term. So let's go. I'm going to cover this quickly. We've only got a couple of minutes to crack through some pretty complex definitions. So please bear with me and recognize I'm leaving a lot on the cutting room floor here. You could probably think about, yes, but this, and sure, totally agree, completely understand. There's a lot of nuance that I'm covering. The two main versions are ER as industrial relations, and those are people who have gone to university, done degrees or industrial relations degrees, and understand all about unions and union relationships. The second category of ER is employment law, and this is people who understand the law that regulates fair treatment of employees while they're in the workplace, and typically we see people here with law degrees or some equivalent of. The third category is employment relations, or ER as human relations, and this is the idea that we need to think about our relationship with our employees and how do we make that as positive as possible, because happy employees equal good workers. So the reason why I bring that in is we're currently in the process of seeing people try to rebrand HR, and what I start to see is employee experience. Now that starts to cross over and get confused with ER, so I bring it up only to mention that's a whole other area. People could start to tie in quite different ideas. So we're just going to leave that. Let's stick to our core concept of ER as industrial relations and ER as employment law. When we're talking industrial relations, essentially, we're looking at things on a macro level within an organization, industry, if you like, in which we are looking about the relationship between labor and capital, between workers who sell their labor in return for money and employers or capital who buy that labor for a set price. It's the relationship of those groups of people, that pluralistic perspective of here are two groups of people working together, but also in conflict because they want to get things in their favor or as protected as possible. They both want to promote their interests, but also protect themselves from the interests of the other party. And if we want to take a little snippet about that, we can talk about flexibility. As an entity, the employer wants maximum flexibility about how and when they employ labor. When they don't need the labor, they don't want to pay for it. Therefore, ideally, there'd be no minimum hours of work. There'd be no specified location. Employees as a group want maximum inflexibility of labor. They want to have certainty of the number of hours that they're going to work and where they're going to work. And they want to diminish the amount of flexibility that can be required of them, or if they do put it in there, they want to be compensated for it. That is just a snapshot of the conflict between employees as a group and the employer. So that's industrial relations. You go to university, get a degree, get a qualification in employment relations, and that's the type of stuff you know about. So let's move on to our second main category, which is ER as employment law. Employment law is the understanding of the rules, regulations, case law, and requirements about how an employer handles and treats an employee, very much on a micro level, very much on a one-on-one. What can you do? What can't you do? What is consultation? What is good faith? How do you correctly make someone redundant? What are your obligations around offering redeployment? Can you performance manage people? What's the duration of a PIP? When a 90-day kicks in, what happens after 90 days? Can you ask people to resign? In what circumstances can you bring them up? When can you offer settlements? 1,001 little rules about what is the fair and reasonable actions that an employer can take. That essentially is ER as employment law. So let's go back to that question of flexibility. From an employment law point of view, it's whatever is negotiated in the contract in terms of what you can, what you can't, how much you have to pay for it. Now, when you bring in the legal perspective of it, then you get into specifically New Zealand questions, the Employment Standards Act. If you're asking for flexibility, how are you compensating for it? So specifically it is, what are the rules and regulations about what the law says you can and can't do, and is there case law that directs us about what we should or shouldn't do? It is not a question of negotiation. It's a question of interpretation of the legal framework that we have to swim in, not the bargaining between two parties, between two actors. So you can see how they are similar concepts, but we are talking to very different things. One is a question of negotiation between two parties. The other is an interpretation of the rules around that. So let me talk about myself, which is something I try not to do. I want you to think about the ideas I put forward, not just agree with them because I've said them. I never want to create a listen to me because I'm the expert type of position. I need to persuade you, not direct you. So this is one of the few circumstances in which I'll talk about myself. To keep it really simple, I describe myself as dual trained in ER. From an industrial relations point of view, that's where my qualifications lie. I've got a doctorate in employment relations. I've got a master's in employment relations. I've done lots of collective bargaining. I've worked in lots of unionized workplaces. I've done all the various things. I know all the theory, and I've talked the talk and walked the walk when it comes to dealing with that labour and capital relationship. The other side is that I've worked as the equivalent of an in-house employment lawyer in many places. I've got lots of training and experience from my time with the EMA, and I still teach employment law for the EMA. So a lot of my experience has also been working as that in-house employment law specialist. The reason why I bring this up is just to make the point and just to demonstrate the fact that because I have two hats that both have the same title on them, I know the difference between them, and I've seen the difference between them. And some people also wear two hats. Now, I'm not the only person who've got both these experiences. There's plenty of lawyers who are good at negotiating collective agreements. There's plenty of in-house people who've got great union experience and are very good at managing all legal issues. I'm not the only person in this space that can do both things. It's more to say that I know that there's two things because I can do both of them. So what's your lesson in here? What's your takeaway from this? What is it that you need to understand and what you need to do differently? You need to know that the word ER has two meanings, and when someone uses the term ER, you can't be certain what they mean. Now, they might mean one, they might mean the other, they sometimes can mean both, but more often than not, it's one or the other. And it's quite critical because you might be an employment lawyer going, well, I'm good with the case law stuff, I'm good with the disciplinary stuff, but I don't do union negotiations, I've got none of that background. Alternatively, you might be a union negotiations person, but you know nothing about how to run disciplinary processes. It is entirely possible you can do both, but we need to recognize they're at least different things. People can be good at two separate things, but just because they share the same name doesn't mean they are the same things. And I'll give you an example. There's a job ad that's just floated past my desk today. I'm not going to tell you the company, I'm not even going to tell you the job title, but I've read this trying to deduce what they actually mean. What is the actual work going to be involved in this organization? Is it going to be dealing with a unionized environment? Or is it going to be dealing with the employment law cases as they come through? Is it a heavy workload of dealing with misconduct, attendance, performance, restructures, all of those sorts of things? Or is it a case where it's going to be front and centre with the union all the time? I can't deduce from their job ad which one it is. I'm going to pick out one phrase. It's the closest I get to being specific. But even then, that doesn't really direct me. It says representing the company in meetings, negotiations and investigations with employees / their representative, which puts me on the side of most likely we're talking employment law. That's what this work is going to involve doing, quite a lot of employment law. But then it talks about negotiations. Negotiating with employees is pretty rare, but that's a pretty specific circumstances in which you've already gone down that path. They've got their lawyer involved, and we're talking exit packages. Generally speaking, you don't want to be doing that often. That negotiations implies industrial relations, but reading the rest of the sentence, probably not. But again, really unclear. So the question is, when you're looking at this, well, what do I need to know? When you're asking yourself, do I need to upskill in ER? Am I talking industrial relations or am I talking employment law? Because that's going to make a big difference in what type of knowledge you need and where you're going to get that from. So that's ER for you. Nice and simple. Came in under 12 minutes. Maybe there's some more I could have said, but chose not to. Maybe I cut out too much. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for making it this far. Thank you for making it to the post-credit scene. We have lots of courses on ER. We have lots of expertise in this area. So to get to the ad at the end, as I always do, if you're interested in what we have to say, if you think that you could learn something from us, if you think that you'd like us to do something for you, check us out at pragmatichrm.nz. See what we've got to offer. See how we can help. If you're not interested in our services right now, that's perfectly fine. You're welcome to keep listening. If you do want to pay us back in a small way, the simplest thing to do is share this video, share this audio, share this podcast with someone else so that they can listen to us. Share us around so other people know about us. Thanks.